Welcome to The Explainer. So, just a few days ago, it really looked like the world was bracing for a brand new war in the Middle East. But today, we're going to break down the absolutely stunning last-minute ceasefire between the US and Iran. We're going to uncover the hidden forces that pretty much reshaped the entire region in just a matter of hours.
I mean, you can't get much more extreme than that, right? The US president was threatening, and I quote, obliteration. The entire world was on a knife's edge. You had oil prices just soaring, global markets were in a total free fall, and in Israel, TV channels literally started a live countdown to war.
And then it all just stopped. With only 2 hours left on that clock, the countdowns froze. The war was off. A ceasefire had been declared. And you know, the terms were maybe even more shocking than the reversal itself. So, okay, let's get into this. What on earth just happened?
Right, so this agreement, it wasn't just about getting to peace. It was about which side's vision for that peace actually won out. And when you look at the details, it honestly looked like a complete strategic reversal for a global superpower. Which, of course, raises the big question. Why would they agree to this?
Okay, so what's really fascinating here is just how stark this contrast is. The US had this big 15-point plan demanding, basically, Iran's total surrender. Well, not a single one of those points was met. Instead, Iran's 10-point proposal was almost entirely accepted. And get this, it went right down to the US having to protect Iran's regional proxies. We're talking about groups like Hezbollah. Just wow.
So for Iran, this wasn't just some pause in the fighting. This was a massive strategic victory. The deal locked in long-term security guarantees, huge economic lifelines by lifting all sanctions, and, unbelievably, even protection for its allies in the region.
And that brings us back to the key question. If the US basically conceded on almost every single point, why? I mean, was it just to avoid a really costly war? Maybe. But the real answer, it turns out, wasn't in Washington or Tehran. It was in capitals much, much further east.
Yeah, the answer isn't with the players you see on the board. It's with the hands that were moving the pieces from way off stage. Turns out, a couple of global powers were playing a much longer, much more strategic game here.
This was nothing short of a geopolitical masterstroke by China. First, it protected its own vital oil interests by vetoing UN action against Iran. Smart. Then, it used Pakistan as a kind of diplomatic cover to quietly broker a deal that served its own agenda. But the real prize? That was the final step, pushing for oil to be traded in Chinese yuan. See, this wasn't just about a ceasefire. It was a direct shot at the petrodollar, the system that underpins America's economic dominance.
And we can't forget Russia. Moscow saw a perfect opportunity to settle the score here. They provided Iran with critical intelligence on U.S. troop and aircraft positions, a direct payback for American support for Ukraine.
And all these strategic moves by China and Russia, well, they helped secure some staggering financial wins for Iran. This first number, $2 billion, that's the estimated toll revenue Iran could collect from ships in the Strait of Hormuz in just the first 2 weeks. That is a massive injection of cash.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the long-term prize. This is the potential annual income for Iran if that toll system becomes permanent. We're talking about a huge new funding source for its reconstruction, for its military expansion, all of it sanctioned by this very deal.
But you know, as these new powers were celebrating this deal, a key U.S. ally was left completely in the dark. One nation was totally blindsided, and its furious reaction could now unravel the entire agreement.
So get this, America's closest ally in the region found out about the ceasefire at pretty much the same time as the rest of us. The shock in Jerusalem was just palpable. It took the Prime Minister's office 4 hours just to release a statement, and when they finally did, it was in English, for the world, not in Hebrew for their own people.
The sense of betrayal inside Israel was immediate, and it was immense. A former prime minister went on social media to call it the worst political disaster in the nation's history, pointing out that Israel wasn't even at the negotiating table.
So here's the crucial point. Israel is now actively working against a peace deal that was guaranteed by its own main ally. By vowing to continue attacks on Hezbollah, it's directly violating a core term of the agreement, and that creates an immediate and incredibly dangerous flashpoint.
You know, this crisis didn't just stop a war. It has completely redrawn the diplomatic map of the region. It's elevated some nations while, well, revealing the anxieties of others.
Over in South Asia, this crisis created this really stark contrast between two old rivals. Pakistan absolutely seized the moment. They acted as the official diplomatic front for the China-brokered talks, and this was a really calculated move to rebrand its international image and pop up as a key regional mediator.
Meanwhile, you have India, which officially stayed on the sidelines, trying to quietly protect its shipping interests. But when India's foreign minister was asked about Pakistan's big role, his really dismissive response was seen by a lot of analysts as betraying some serious frustration of being left out of these high-stakes negotiations, where its main rival Pakistan played a central role.
So, after all these backroom deals, all the public declarations, and these shifting alliances, we have to ask the most important question of all. Is this ceasefire actually going to last?
Well, the foundations of this peace look incredibly fragile. I mean, you've got Israel actively defying a core part of it, you have intense political pressure on President Trump back in the US, the whole nuclear enrichment issue is completely unresolved, and let's be honest, you have a collection of highly unpredictable leaders at the very center of it all.
And that really leaves us with a final kind of provocative thought. We may have just witnessed not just the end of a crisis, but the dawn of a whole new global dynamic, one where the old rules and the old alliances, they just don't apply anymore. The real question now is, what comes next?